Hello, everyone. This is the Hockey Outsiders, episode 13, coming live from Taipei, Taiwan on October 30th, Halloween Eve. I'm here with,
Hello, Steve.
how's it going,
Happy
Sean?
Halloween, everyone.
Good to have you again.
Nice to be here.
How's things? Everything all right?
Everything's good. I was all dressed up for Halloween, did the whole party, and now I'm hungover for 2 days.
Did you go as a loser with the Canucks jersey on? Was that the.
Oh well, let's go. Let's go. Let's talk about the standings right now. How about? It's the one time I can wear it where I'm the winning person in the standings. So deal with it, buddy.
This is very, very true. This is actually a good way to start. Let's start with some
Yeah.
maybe surprises and some letdowns so far in the year. Let's start there. Maybe that might be a pretty decent place to start. Nice lead in at least.
You want to start right away with your Oilers? It's the most relevant topic, maybe.
Uh, okay. Yeah.
So let's hear your diagnosis, doctor. Mike, what's the problem with Edmonton right now?
I think I think it's sort of a for me it's the same sentiment that's sort of been bantered about by most of the guys. I think they've got McDavid, who's the fastest skater in the league. He's the fastest guy in the league. But after McDavid, they're I think they're a little bit too slow. And
Yep.
you see that a lot with their forecheck. I mean, if you look at other teams in the league that are successful, they have lines that can really give teams trouble getting out of their zone, and the Oilers really can't and aren't doing that. They can't.
Yeah.
Aside from that first line, there's no one that really keeps any solid pressure in there, and they've got some young kids that can skate. My opinion on that is I don't think that they should be bringing them up this year, and I'll touch a little bit on the Leafs here as well because I thought this last year with the Oilers is that I thought last year was probably their best chance to win it all. And I'm seeing that with the Leafs. I think the Leafs this year and possibly next year are going to be their best chance to win it all because then they're going to have the same trouble that Edmonton's into right now is they're going to start having cap issues with all of those big contracts that come up.
Yeah.
We had so much more depth and we had three solid lines of guys that could do stuff and a fourth line that was definitely in the mix. But again, we lost a few players and again another year of age on some of these older guys like Lucic and stuff. Although Lucic has come into this year a little bit thinner, and he is a little bit faster than he was last year. But again, I think that they're just the guys that they're relying on are just a little bit too slow. Um,
Do you worry about Talbot?
Not really. I think he's settled back into his where he is. He's a really solid goaltender. I don't think there's much to worry about there. And I think, especially in today's NHL, I think if we've learned anything, it's a pretty simple thing to be like, look, you can have a decent goaltender in the pipes if you've got between the pipes if you've got decent enough defense. If your defense isn't up to par, then your goalies get lit up. I mean, Devin Dubnyk is the biggest example of that, right? I mean, we had him in Edmonton when we had garbage defense for so many years, and he was getting hammered. He goes to Minnesota, where they have a proper defensive structure in there. They've got some top end defensive defenders, and look at what he's done.
Yeah, he's become almost a Vezina. In the years with Edmonton, he was a laughing stock of like his stats were some of the worst that have ever been put up over that many games in the NHL. But it was totally that's what used to drive me crazy about those Edmonton teams was that people would rag on him like he's a bad goalie, but not on the GMs or the president who were not getting defensive players. We're never trying to get defensive players around him.
Well, as I said before, it's one of
Like,
the things where it's, and I think the biggest problem with Edmonton, the management that was there, um, is that they didn't realize what the problems were. They figured that if they just had a goalie that would fix the problems. But that's not it. I mean, I've played goalie as well, and there's a big difference when you play with some teams that know how to um, defend properly and teams that just hang you out to dry. And there's a huge difference. Like, I mean, any goalies that have played out there will know this. Um, and again, it's a real thing. When you've got guys that know how to defend and get in the way of the play properly, it makes a goalie's job a heck of a lot easier. You're seeing it with Carey Price this year too, right? because last year Montreal's defense was was very good. Well, it wasn't very good, but it was a lot better than it is this year. I mean, I think
Better
that,
than it.
and I think that they're missing Markov, and as sad that is to say, they're missing
Uh,
he's like a 40-year-old defenseman back there, and I'm not sure, but like I said, that's just really telling to see the best goalie in the world struggle in front of a lackluster defense, and it's
they just waived Strite too. Strite's waived. He's so their replacement, and they're also replacing him with Victor Mete, who's
pretty well from what I've heard.
doing all right. I have him in my dynasty, and I got him for nothing. Like the last year, halfway through the year, I noticed his stats look good in the minors. I was like, he's got offensive skill, and now they're playing him 20 minutes a game. It's crazy. It's wrong though. Like he's doing well, but he shouldn't be in that role. There's no other defenseman his skill level getting that many minutes in the NHL right now. He's doing all right with it.
He is still pretty young, that's for sure.
He is very young, and he's got upside, and he could replace Markov, but they're not playing him because it's the right decision. They're playing him because they can't afford anything else. So that's the reason that and they absolutely should have just paid Markov. Like,
I think
I really believe he's so undervalued. He's one of the best first pass guys ever in the NHL, I think. Like and also his power play. It's not that he makes a good pass, it's that he makes a smooth, he knows how to set guys up. He knows how to like put it in your sweet spot so you bang it in. And he also just doesn't make mistakes defensively. And 40 or not, and slow or not, he was holding together that team, and they were undervaluing how much he held together that team, even last year.
Well, they can still break back in. He hasn't signed anywhere, has he?
No, but I think there's frayed trust with those two now. I think that they kind of lost their chance, and he is 40. He's probably moved. He's got a new home, probably back in Russia, or he probably already had a home, and he's probably just they're not going to pay him. Russia is paying him probably decently well, so
I imagine he's probably getting as much or more there, I would guess.
Yeah, and he's probably resettled now and all that stuff. So I doubt he's going to come back.
He had a pretty wicked shot as well. So
he did. He was just all around great. I remember at the beginning of his career, he's one of my favorite players because I do remember at the very beginning of his career, he had those injuries, real bad injuries, and he looked great, but then he would get hurt for half the year, and it happened like 3 years in a row, and everybody got scared they're like, Markov's always too injury prone, and then he went on the Ironman streak. He had the Ironman streak after that. He played the longest in the NHL in a row, so he really proved him. At the end of his career, he's Hall of Fame for sure. I think at the end of his career, he was just so steady, always making those teams way better. Everybody who plays with him got better. Like, what's his name? Subban was better with him for sure. Anyway, like that's that team. We're looking at a team that's disappointing, but I mean they're not. But you looked at them on paper at the beginning of the year. That's what I saw. I saw a team that had a lot of depth players that were playing roles they shouldn't be playing, and like no way to fix it. Like a weak defense after Weber, and no way to fix it. Like they're playing guys that are too young, and it looks to me like if their GM doesn't get fired soon, they might wait until the end of the year and just give up on this year and not do it right now. But he's definitely Bergevin's on the block, I would say.
Or to do that, I mean, Carey Price has got to be getting pretty frustrated with the way that it's gone there. I mean, they haven't done anything to help him out at all. And if you think about that, that's extremely, extremely frustrating. I don't even know how they would be able to keep that sort of a thing going. It doesn't make much sense to me.
Totally agree. I had the same thought earlier today when I was just thinking about how bad they're doing. The reason the GM needs to get fired is just to show Carey Price, like, oh, this is bad. We're going to try and fix it. Please don't leave us. Or they trade for Carey Price. They get some crazy package for him.
The fans were heckling him as well, like a la Patrick Waugh back in the day.
And that's a fan base that will sour, as we've seen with Patrick Waugh. He was the king. And he wasn't.
by far probably the worst thing that ever happened in, like, I mean, if you talk to some Montreal fans, they'll say that that was probably one of the lowest points of their entire existence when that thing sort of fell through like that. So,
Well, it's heading down the same path. It's like I don't hear stuff in the media or anything about Price being unsettled or unhappy,
you can
but
see,
he's got to be unhappy.
you can see it in his game. I mean, he's broken more sticks this year than I think I've seen him in years combined. He's already busted sticks over the nets more than once, and he's usually a pretty calm and composed sort of a guy. And then, like I said, just going through this, I know it's tough. I mean, I'm an Oiler fan. We know how tough it is, but you know, I can't even imagine as a player, especially one that takes so much pride in his position as the best in the world, right? I mean, his numbers have been atrocious so far this year.
Yeah, really awful. And it's not his fault. Like he is partially to blame. He's having an off beginning of the year, but it doesn't help that there's no Markov. There's Mark Straight and there's Victor Mete in front of him. And I sound like I'm dissing Victor Mete. I have him in my dynasty. Like I like him as a player, and he's going to be a good player. But that's just a recipe for disaster. A 19-year-old or whatever he is, who's never really played big minutes, is suddenly 20 minutes a game at defense. Doesn't work well normally.
Only one that I remember that was able to handle that stress for an entire year was probably Werenski.
Yeah, Werenski's he's his own beast. Like he is like nobody else. Ghost Despair the year before was that kind of player too, but he was more of an purely offensive role.
Yeah.
Werenski was all kinds of minutes, like played every situation, anchored their D year or two. He was not even close to as good second half, but he's still that first half he had was like Norris Trophy good. So he would have had to regress a lot more to not be like legendary in that last year.
The one I think if I'll go back to the Oilers here a little bit. I think that if they're because Chiarelli has come out and sort of said that he's not very happy with the Strome deal for Eberle thus far. It's not that much of a drop off to me. I mean, I'm not. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit disappointing that he hasn't put up more points, but it's not as though he's playing with anybody who's like lights out either. They've got Draisaitl and McDavid on that one line, which sort of gives you one of the best lines in hockey, sure, but they need to find someone else, I think, that can play with McDavid. And if they're gonna, there's a few guys that I would personally go and target. And I'll run these past you and see what your thoughts are in this. I think that they're one of their main guys that they should maybe take a look at. Actually, there's three players that I'm going to throw you, all of them from teams in New York that are struggling as well. Michael Grabner, I think, would be a very inexpensive, good fit on McDavid's wing. He's got tons of speed. He can score goals. He could probably be one of the only guys that would be able to keep up with McDavid. And he's a veteran guy as well. And on a cheap contract at 1.65, I do believe.
Yeah, I like him. He's underrated every year. He has a nose for the net, absolutely.
I think,
and has that speed totally.
He'd be a nice, and again, I think you could get him for a couple candy bars and a package of certs. You know what I mean? I don't think he'd be totally expensive. Another guy,
you're right.
There's two different avenues here. I would, because I do believe that he only has 1 year left on his contract, but a Rick Nash as well.
Yeah, I was thinking Rick Nash. That's what I thought you were going to go to too.
Well, Michael Grabner first, because again, there's zero cost involved, right? Probably get him for a third round pick, probably something along those lines, or a depth sort of a younger player at some point. But Rick Nash, the only problem there is that I would want the Rangers to be eating at least half of that salary.
Yeah, what is his salary? 6.5 or something?
9 million. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Huh?
Right.
And I mean, I think Rick Nash is still a very solid player. He's got speed. I mean, he's not as fast as Grabner is, but I don't think he's that much slower either. And I think a change could do him really, really well. I think that he probably knows he's not going to get anywhere near his $7.9 million contract again next year as well. So he might be a guy that comes here and enjoys the atmosphere and enjoys playing with, Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or whatever, and likes it and sticks around past this year for a little bit less money. And we can use guys like that, right?
Yeah, I can see that. He could resurrect himself a little bit there.
I think so. Another guy that I would like to see them maybe kick some tires on, and this one might be a little bit of a pipe dream, but it seems to be a really rocky sort of a setup there, is Hosang. Joshua Hosang.
Yeah, right.
Because I think that, again, he's a younger guy. He's unproven. Yes, you're right. But, I mean, he can absolutely keep up. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's been rumors all around that there's, issues with him off ice and stuff like that. But if he was coming into this team, I'm pretty sure we could resurrect that. I mean, a lot of guys have kind of come in here and said that it's a completely different setup than what it used to be. So having those kind of issues doesn't really worry me too much.
And also the guys that are, you got Draisaitl and you got McDavid, who are pretty much the same age as him, who are the leaders of the team. So the leadership groups around his age, I mean, that could be bad, but it's not bad when the guys are, McDavid is, he's like as mature as they come. So he doesn't act like a young guy, but he is a young guy. So he might understand some of the Hosang problems that are going on, but say, look, man, just come and play hard for us and it'll be all good.
Yeah, I think those are three guys that they should be kind of looking at and kicking a bunch of tires on, because I think all three of them, obviously, I think could be had, and I don't think we'd be giving up anybody. We wouldn't have to give up anybody really expensive to get them. And I had an argument the other day with a couple of Oiler fans, and I said our time to win is now. We don't need our first round picks next year. We don't need our second round picks next year. Put those up. Put them up. I mean, if it takes us if we have to give up a first round draft pick to get Hosang, then do that. It's fine. It's not much of a loss. If it takes us a first round pick to get the Rangers to eat half of Nash's salary, you could probably score Nash and Grabner in a deal for a first round pick and a prospect and not have to give up one of Puljujarvi or Yamamoto to get that. And if you're able to pull that off, and I think that if the Oilers can bring in Yamamoto and Puljujarvi at the same sort of time, they'll have another really good chance of winning it all at some point here in the next couple of years, because they'll have that depth of young players on their ELC.
What if it was Puljujarvi that was getting for some of these players? Would you be willing to move Puljujarvi?
I don't think any of those players would cost us that. That's kind of the thing, right? I don't think none of those three players they're gonna be asking for a Puljujarvi or a Yamamoto, that kind of a player, because they know. I mean, the Rangers would love to just be rid of that $7.9 million contract at this point in time, right? Like I said, I'm not sure where they stand with Grabner, but again, Grabner's just sort of just a fringe guy for them at this point. And Hosang's, you know what his issues, they're quite documented there in the island, and he's got to be getting pretty tired of it too. I mean, let's be realistic. He had 4 points in 6 games when he was up, and he was sent back on a team that's not scoring much anyway.
Yeah,
makes me question.
Yeah, he wasn't playing that bad actually. Like, I don't understand why he's not getting a more solid role either.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is there. So, like I said, I think all three of those players could be attainable. But again, you get the biggest argument is that, Oilers don't need forwards. And you might be right. They're looking at defense, but that's one of the hardest positions to actually get solid players at. I mean, I would probably, if it was, you're looking for defensemen, I would be calling Vegas and trying to be grabbing Theodore, if that was possible.
No, they're not giving up Theodore. Theodore, their banking is their future.
Sitting down in the minors right now, not getting any playing time. He should be up.
He's on my waiver wire thing because he's one of the most added players, even though he's on the minors right now with not a lot of news that he's coming up. But everybody just knows he's good, and he's going to get, once he gets up, he's going to get 20 minutes a game and a lot of power play time. He's really good. Like, he really is good. He's no bullshit. He's a real, going to be a real scorer for sure in the NHL. He might not be the best defensively, but he's going to be a power play guy. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's good. But again, there's just so much not out there for defensive guys right now. I mean, what at Vegas, Garrison, that's definitely not someone that I would be chomping at the bit to grab. But I mean, It's pretty
No, I
scary.
think he's kind of done.
One guy that did kind of come up the other day in some talks is Jarmelson, the old Hawk player in Arizona.
I don't like him that much. Like, I mean, people talk like he's better. Like his numbers don't show up, but he's really got more value than it looks like on paper. I don't know. I don't see it that much. I think he was in a good system before.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think he was played in the exact position where he should have been in Chicago, and I think
Yeah, exactly.
we're able to get him there and keep him in that sort of comfortable spot and make him a lot more valuable than what he actually is. I agree with that point too. But again, with the defense so scarce and guys to get, I would take a waiver on him.
Yeah.
But I mean, aside from that, who else do you really call? Do you call the Leafs and grab maybe one of Gardner or something like that? But then you'd be giving up something of value to get
What
that.
about Vegas getting Colin Miller, who's not really good, but he's serviceable, and I'm sure he's available.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen because
He's not a good, really overly good player, but he's not bad either. He's here. He's in the top 6 of most teams.
yeah, it's just
Of every team.
what's going to happen there because it's just it's really sort of a kind of just a gumbled setup for defensemen that's out there. So I think the Oilers are going to be kind of stuck with the guys that they have. I don't think there's really much room for movement there, but I do think that they need to get a little bit faster up front. And there was an article the other day that came out in the Edmonton Journal that said that Chiarelli's not satisfied with Strome and that he might deal him away if the right deal sort of came along too. So
Well, that makes sense. Like, I don't think he really wanted Strome when he got Strome. I think he wanted a D the whole way through. Nobody would give them a D. Nobody would give them anything that was close to worth having for Eberle. So in the end, he just gave up and took somebody that he thought was a better contract, but a similar player. So at least he was out of the Eberle. Like he got away from Eberle. He wanted to get away from Eberle.
yeah, I agree there. And
It's
I don't hate the trade still. I mean, there's some people that because I mean Eberle just put up his first 2 goals of the year the other day. He had 2 goals, 1 assist. I'm still just not a big fan of his either. I don't think that he's I'm just not a big fan of him as a player. I like him as a person. I mean, from what I've heard, he's a really nice guy. He's signed a couple of jerseys for me to a friend of mine. So I have nothing wrong with him on a personal level. I just don't like the way that he plays hockey. So
Yeah, I hear you. You know what? Montreal might be a team that wants to get away from Weber down the line if they're looking as bad as they are right now.
I think he would be. Oh, that would be a dream. He'd be nice to
Be a dream, all right.
It'd be pretty expensive, I think. Let's stick with Montreal for a little bit. What do you think they're going to do to alleviate the problems? Because let's be realistic. If there's going to be a team that's going to do something this early, it will be the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, the problem is if I'm them, I don't trust the GM at this point. Like, I don't want that regime to be the ones making the decisions. I don't think. I think it's time that they made a change.
I think that
Because
give him one more chance, and I think that here's what I think is going to happen. I think the Montreal Canadiens get Matt Duchene. I think Matt Duchene comes into Montreal, and it'll probably for Alex Galchenyuk. Galchenyuk, who used to play with Yakupov, is kind of a beautiful fit there. And just let those 2 guys sort of run in Colorado, and they'll give up Matt Duchene to Montreal, and it'll be Drouin and Duchene kind of running the engine in Montreal there for the remainder of this year.
I hear you, but if you're Colorado, why? Why would you?
Well, because
Colorado's winning right now. It's a joke, but Colorado's winning right now.
yeah, they're not going to stay that, and I'm pretty sure they know that. And I mean, I think I'm quite certain that Duchene is probably looking to get out as well. I mean, the way that he's sort of been treated there, it wouldn't definitely wouldn't surprise me one tiny little bit.
I hear you, but I don't know, that's an interesting team to even talk about, is that they were, let's be honest, we didn't think they were going to be as bad as they were last year. I definitely didn't go into the year thinking Colorado is going to be the worst team in the NHL by a lot. I think they're going to normalize a bit this year, and I think they're going to get back to closer to 500. Maybe not quite 500, but it's similar to like Vancouver, like hovering around there all year.
That's still not.
And
I mean, they had. I remember a couple of years. I said this to you before. A couple of years ago, they had one of those teams that you were just drooling over. I mean, he had so many young, great players coming up and through the system, and it kind of reminds me a little bit now of Arizona. Arizona's got so many great young players that you would think would be doing, amazing things, but you've got Dylan Strome still sitting in the minors.
yeah, I don't get it. Like the Arizona,
Walk for the Calder.
dude, they still haven't won a game, right?
No, they haven't. They're 09 and 010 and 010 and 1 as of now. 11 games.
Really crazy. I thought they were going to be way better this year.
Well, they've got the Clayton Keller kids played really, really well. Their team's just so full of young guys. I mean, they've got Ekman Larson. I'd love the Oilers to grab that guy.
Yeah, well, he should be available for sure this year. They can't just keep losing like this. He's getting older. He's aging. And he's not.
I think I'd listened to another podcast. I can't remember who it was, but they said the same thing. That's what Shalmerson's situation is. They're like he's sort of like a rental, but with an extra year on. He's a 2-year rental is basically what it is, and he's only making 4.5 or something along those lines. And they thought that they'd be able to get some value for him, and then because they kind of said the same thing, and as I said, Ekman Larson might be in sort of the same boat where he's getting a little bit tired of just constantly losing and having all these young players come in and then management taking on these ridiculous contracts just to help other teams out. But there's got to be an end to it. I mean, there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel for a team like that, and it doesn't seem that it's happening there.
And then you see Vegas are a super team. Like hockey's so crazy that way. Like you can look at stuff and predict, but hockey doesn't work. Like I would never bet on hockey. Like it's one sport I used to when I was young, thinking like, oh, I know hockey so well, I'm going to be able to win all these bets. But I learned real quick because no way are you going to predict what's going to happen. You can predict maybe long term.
There's lots of variables, and that's one of the things, right?
Yeah.
So many variables. It's a tough one. So yeah, like I said, you go from Edmonton, who's had their early struggles, Montreal, touched on Arizona a little bit. Anybody else that sort of stands out on the bummer end of the scale?
The bummer end,
I've got
Washington. Washington's disappointing me, and I kind of went into this going like, yeah, everybody knew they were going to be worse this year, a little bit worse, but they don't look a little bit worse. They look like right in the middle, like they kind of belong right in the middle too. And I actually thought people were overblowing how bad they were going to be this year, and I was kind of buying in on, okay, well, I'll take Washington because I think they're going to be great still. They still got Kuznetsov, they still got Ovechkin, Holtby. Their defense did get worse. They've only pretty much got Carlson now, and that's it. But I don't know. They're looking worse. They really are looking worse. Pittsburgh's up and down too. Those two teams are like. I have Matt Murray.
It was scary coming out the first little bit, but then yeah, they've just got blown out a few times.
They're very. You said it earlier to me that they're hit and miss. They're like it's Jekyll and Hyde, yeah. Because I have Murray, so I've seen him I've had him on the bad games where I'm like, oh my god, he's never in his whole career had a game like that ever. Like I've had him in Dynasty since he was in AHL, and he's never done that.
Yep.
This is like a new thing that I've never seen from that team and from him. I wonder if it's him or if it's the team. I don't know, because they'll come back the next game and get a shutout. So.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Like I said, they've just been, like I said, Jekyll and Hyde to me. They've been lights out some nights, and then some nights they're just, you look at the score and you're going 7-1. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's real blowouts when they lose.
Winnipeg, is that right? You know what I mean? One other.
I really don't get it.
And I think that there could be some changes on this team as well as the Buffalo Sabres. Jack Eichel has come out and about his frustration with losing. I'm going to say the exact same thing, and I think this is going to be an echoing situation with John Tavares, with Jack Eichel, the same thing with Carey Price and some of these other bigger name players. they need to be surrounded with people that are going to make them win. And Buffalo, for some reason, I think I've said this before 2 years in a row that I think that they're good enough to make the playoffs. But every time they get on the ice, they're just garbage.
Yeah.
And they've been handcuffed a little bit with some really bad contracts. I mean, the Oposo contract that they've got is has turned into like a big albatross on that sort of thing. Is $6.5 million for a guy that is doing nothing.
He might be like honestly, like in fantasy and anything,
I
he
think
might be done. Like he's droppable right now in any league,
I've
any
dropped
format.
I've dropped him in all of them. I picked him up. I mentioned this when we did the draft. I said I thought he was going to have a nice year this year, right?
Me too.
And I've dropped him in every one of the leagues. I thought he was a nice steal. I got him in the second or third last round, and I thought he's going to be a steal because he'll have a year. He'll get 30 goals, and he's been horrendous. I think he's one
And
assist,
the stuff
something like that.
stuff that was happening to him at the end of last year was not. It was like his brain was not working. Like he was having vertigo. He was having concussion symptoms, is what it was. It was like post concussion syndrome. But it was very serious stuff. It wasn't like, oh, my head's hurting. It was like I can't walk, I can't function as a human. So, and he kind of came back saying like, oh, I'm good this year. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And all of the stuff in the media was, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. His play definitely makes it look like he's not good because he was a really good player. You go back right before that injury, even right before the injury, he was a good hockey player. As soon as that happened to him and he kept trying to play or whatever, since then, he's been a completely different player and bad. Like bad, bad.
Yeah, he's been a real rough go, and I like I said I've said this 2 years in a row, and they've kind of bit me in the ass both times. I said that they were my dark horse to make the playoffs, and I thought this year was a good one. I mean, they're another team that's so stacked with young talent and guys that should be able to get them more wins than they're getting, but they're just not getting the job done. I mean, I like Eichel. I think he's a beautiful player, and Ristolainen's another real beauty that they've got on the defense as well. But yeah, they're just not able to pull it together.
Yeah, it looks like they built it right. Like it does look like they've only added good players. Like they drafted Ristolainen and he was a great pick. He really is a good defenseman. And a lot of their Eichel's a really good player. Like Reinhardt's been a disappointment. I've seen him dropped in a couple leagues as well, and he's been a disappointment. But he's gonna be okay. He's gonna be an okay player, I think. But it's just they kind of look on paper they should be fine. I agreed with you a bit that they look like they should be good, but I was with Richard more when we talked about it because they always choke. They always are so bad,
Well,
and they just are still.
makes me really sort of wonder how long it's going to take before these guys do that. Like where if Tavares keeps going the way he's going with the Islanders, is he gonna, although they're sitting okay right now, they're sitting at 6-4, but I mean if that starts to falter and fall off, does Tavares stay?
Well, that's where the thing is with them. That's where they always are. They're always 6-4, and 6-4 doesn't win you anything. You're not going to win anything by going 6-4. They need to become a real they're gonna need to go on a real run at some point to show him anything because he's used to this. They always are over 500. They're always making the playoffs or at the eighth spot. They're so close, but nobody ever takes the Islanders to win it. Nobody even takes them to win the first round,
Yeah.
and they don't. They never do, and it's just repeating the same thing, Groundhog Day for him. That's almost worse. Like I would almost prefer if I'm one of those guys that okay, we blow it up one year, it didn't go well, and we have a new plan, and now here we go with our new plan, and okay, well at least I know your new plan, and we're gonna get all these good young players to build around. He's just got a whole bunch of nothing. Like the same guys are rotating in every year, and it's the same record, and okay, we're winning, but there's no sign that it's changed whatsoever this year.
Well, even I even questioned bringing in the Everly one because, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the way he plays. But even bringing him there, I knew that it wasn't going to be a game changer for Jonathan Tavares, just for the simple fact that it's so Jordan Everly is a pretty soft player to be bringing into your lineup. Yeah, he might get his 30-30, but I'm not even sure he gets that this year. Um, and again, he couldn't put up those points playing with McDavid. What makes anybody think that he's going to increase those numbers playing with Tavares?
Yeah, it's just more of the same, you know. Like Strome actually played well at the end of last year. When like, why are you shipping him out when he just started to play well? Then you're replacing with another guy that you think, okay, he's going to be better. Well, Strome just started playing well for you guys. Like, why? Why ship him out? He's a better contract. It made sense for Edmonton to make that trade because they're not really that much different. We'll see. We'll see. Strome's looked bad. Strome has not looked good.
Yeah, he definitely hasn't
But
looked very good. Again, I think most players, when they get put in the right situations, can flourish. They just have to find those positions. Those situations, I think, are the most important part of a player to be successful.
how about some teams that are doing well then? Like LA or Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is
Yeah, I mean, let's start off. Let's start off with someone who surprised me a little bit. Let's not go right up into the big ones in Tampa, and we'll talk about the most surprising one later on. I'm pretty sure everybody knows. But how about the Philadelphia Flyers?
yep. I was thinking about them today.
I've been very impressed with the way that they've played. Voracek, Giroux's back. They've got bringing Couturier up to the first line. Brilliant.
Seems great move.
One of the best moves. I've been saying this for a few years on him. I think that he was always stuck on that third center role there, and I thought that he was much better than a third center. And they've brought him up this year, and he has been by far I think their best player of the year.
And an interesting thing. It was actually I was going to talk about waivers. Is that I saw Brian Elliott in a very shallow league I'm in go on waivers.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not been great. Somebody dropped him in my league, and I just looked at that like you can't be dropping him right now because that team is doing well. He is the streakiest goalie around. There's no goalie that gets streakier. He goes on runs where he goes 940 save percentage, 12 games in a row, wins every game, shutout. Philadelphia is also a team that's real streaky. Together on a good run, he could be lights out. They could be real good. I kind of like them. I think that they're on the come up.
One of the nicest things I think about them is they've got some really, really solid defensive depth there of these young kids coming in, Provorov and Sanheim and a bunch and Gostisbehere, and all of those guys are so young, but they're playing so well, and they've sort of done the right thing in bringing them all up sort of together and letting them grow together. I mean, they've got their leadership guys who are a little bit older in Voracek and Giroux and those guys, but they're not very old either.
Well, that Provorov pick, I forget where they got him. I think they got him 10th, maybe something like that. Maybe a little later even. But Provorov is a player. He's a really good player. Like he kind of seems like even that he could be the steal of that draft. Just was right away was valuable to them. Like immediately improved everything. And he's big and he's strong and he's intimidating and he's got offensive skills.
Yeah.
So that what I really think in the NHL, like I play that dynasty league where it's the same depth as the NHL, basically 45-man rosters, 30 teams. We're just like the NHL. So I really see trends in that league that you see in the NHL as well. And we're also going to salary cap next year, which is going to be interesting. So the case in that league is defense. Nothing matters more because there's such a lack of defensive depth in the NHL. There's a lot of guys that get 10 to 20 points, but not a lot of guys that get more than that. There's a few guys that get more than that, and they're so valuable. And what has happened in that league, the most valuable thing is defensive prospects. Blue chip defensive prospects have become like Werenski, of course, but not just Werenski. Provorov's, Ristolainen when he was younger, before he came up and became as good as he was, you could never get them from guys because they knew you can't get guys like that. You have to draft them. They're not available. NHL teams, not available. You don't get, that's why Ekman Larson, even though they keep losing, they're just like, we can't find another one of him. Like, they don't grow on trees. Look at Edmonton. They can't find one. You have to draft all of them.
Edmonton, Darnell Nurse has looked really good this year.
Yep.
He's probably been one of the best players, I think, when you take the entire length of the season thus far. I think he's been one of the bigger surprises. But again, on the flip side, Clefbaum's been probably one of the bigger disappointments, which was
Yeah.
not supposed to be how it was. So they are saying that Clefbaum is playing with a bit of an injury right now, but again, who knows how much truth there is to that at this point.
But you know who's been solid is Larson. He's been good. Your Larson.
He reminds me a
He's
lot
not
of an old
boring.
Adam Foote type of guy. He's just a really solid, hard to play against defender. I mean, he's not as tough, fight worthy guy that as Foote was, but he's just one of those guys that's really tough to play against.
Exactly. He's just a grinder that you don't want to face ever. I'm looking here at Philly's defense, and you're totally right. The fact that they have, well, we all know Ghost Bear and we know Provorov, but also Manning's very good, and he's just been in their system, and they just built him up, and they're giving him solid role now, and he's good, just good. Goodass, I don't know. He's been bad this year. He's not been himself. Definitely in fantasy, he's been like, what the hell's going on? Because a lot of people in those category leagues paid up for Goodass, thinking he's going to get 500 hits.
Well, that's just one of those things. He's the hit block guy, right? I mean, he just does all of that stuff, right?
And he's not doing it this year. Like, what's going on, Goodass? Come on, hit some people, block some things.
What's going on there? But
they also have
a pretty solid core they've got going on there.
And they've also got Sanheim, who is a great young defenseman as well. So they're just.
I think at this point, I don't think he's up with the team right now, or if he is, he hasn't skated much. But yeah, he's another beauty as well.
I really like them, and I think that like I have Wayne Simmons in a league, and I love Wayne Simmons. Wayne Simmons in category leagues as well is lights out. He's a monster.
He's Jamie Benn Light, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I love him. But they've just got a solid team, and they're gonna win.
Well, is very young, and he's a very solid forward as well. Young, solid forward who's going to be a real player as well.
Yeah, totally. And even
Patrick as well. So I mean, they've got
they're deep. They're 3 lines deep too. They are useful. 4 lines deep.
Jordan Wheels played quite well as well for them.
Yeah.
So I mean,
very well.
Yeah, it's a good team. They've got a really good mix of stuff there. It's not going to be too much longer until they're making some noise as well.
I think they're playoffs this year, and I think that it would be a good time to buy in on Elliott, because he's not been great, but he's been better recently in the last little bit, and they're still giving him starts, and I think he could stabilize them. He's way better than Mason was, that's for sure. And Mason's like career's over now in Winnipeg, by the way. Yeah. So that really kind of shows you, like, Mason did okay in Philly, could kind of just barely manage to keep the job sometimes. He's gone to Winnipeg and he's blown up, and I don't know if you'll see him at the end of the year in Winnipeg.
I've heard a little bit of a rumor, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but I've heard that if Vegas starts to slide and they're not making the playoffs, is that they're going to just deal every one of their big name players away that they think that they won't be able to run with. And I've heard that possibly the Flyers, if things don't go well with Elliott, would be very much interested in bringing in Martin.
I think it's so stupid. I hope they don't, because I just think it's a mistake. Like Fleury's 33, I think. He's not been great for a little while now. And he was in Pittsburgh and not great. So I just think he's a bit overrated, honestly. I traded away my dynasty this year, and I got a lot for him, and I was super happy to get it. I traded him right before he got hurt. But I really think he's drying up a bit. And they're better off just playing Elliott, or get a younger guy, or like don't.
One of the biggest things that sort of bothers me about Philadelphia is that they've never really had like a real legitimate number one goalie. I mean, when was the last time they had a bona fide number one goaltender?
Yeah, you're totally right. Like Hextall.
it goes back almost that far, right? I mean, yeah, you could throw Brizgalov. Well, they brought in Brizgalov, who was at he wasn't there anymore. He wasn't, he wasn't
Yeah.
the goalie that he was when he was in Arizona or Phoenix or whatever the hell you want to call it. But and I mean, so that was like that's as close as it really gets, and that's a long time without a real bona fide number one solid goaltender. You know what I mean? So, and I think that if they're anywhere near the playoffs this year, they would entertain doing something like this just to bring a little bit of stability there, and you could have a 1-2 effect.
I just personally, I prefer Elliott to Fleury. If I even just this year, I prefer Elliott to Fleury. I think Elliott, you at least get that streaky awesomeness. I think Fleury's just consistent meh, like not above average at all anymore. So like I don't think he's going to put it together for a playoffs. And I also think he's got body issues now. Like this is stuff. He's not healthy all the time, and I don't think it's going. The other thing with them is they're winning. Like they want to trade him for sure. They want to trade Fleury for sure. They want to. You could see with Subban. Subban's serviceable, and Subban could be their goalie for the future, or Oscar Dansk now, who's come in and played well. These guys could be their good. They should not be building around a goalie for sure. They know that. They just got Fleury to be a trade chip. They got screwed because now he's got no value until he gets back and shows he can play. But they would have traded him at any point, I think.
Well, it's interesting to see because if you kind of look and you go through, there's not many teams out there that need a goalie, except
No.
Philadelphia's kind of got that glaring need there. Again, they haven't had a proper goaltender there for quite some time, but they're one of those teams, and the Islanders as well, right? The Islanders could
Yeah.
bringing in a guy like Fleury, but I mean, realistically, if you kind of look down the list, there's not really much out there for goaltender.
No.
I'm not sure if Carolina has soured on Darling as of.
I'm wondering that was one I was going to mention them because, but he's not. Darling. They're going to let Darling prove himself a little bit longer, I think, but not a lot longer. He's been pretty average. He's been pretty ho hum, and I drafted him a couple leagues. I was looking at him this year, thinking, "Oh, Carolina is much better. I think they're going to be better." They have been better. He's not been better.
But
He's been
I think
Cam Ward's been better.
players that need to sort of step up, like Victor Rask, I think needs to play a lot better. I think Lindholm needs to step it up. I think there's guys like that were so promising last year that need to really sort of step their games up a little bit. But I guess every
Yeah,
kind of guys.
that was my that I was really high on, and I'm regretting it. They're not ready yet. They're just another year or two away. They're 1 year away. I think next year they can make a jump.
Yeah.
But I think they might regret that Darling contract. I really do. I'm starting to think that was a mistake. He was a career journeyman, and then he went to Chicago, and he looked really good whenever he would play for Chicago, but it's Chicago. So even this year, I think Chicago's a worse team, but last year they were still really a good team. So you can put a lot of different goalies in that spot, and they're going to do great.
Yeah.
Kind of like every year, the backup for New York for a while was always good. It was Talbot, and then it was NT Ranta. It was all these guys. Oh wow, look how great they are. And Washington, Grubauer. Oh, he's amazing. I don't know. Put him on another team, and I don't know. So I think we're kind of seeing with Darling, maybe he wasn't as good. Time you can't write him off in a week or 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah. So who do you got as your next biggest surprise as opposed to the Philadelphia Flyers? Let's work up little bits on this one because there are a few teams that sort of stand out to me.
I wouldn't say I'm surprised at all, but I'm pleasantly happy, I guess, is Tampa Bay. They look like world beaters for sure. They're monsters. Very scary.
That team has probably been the best managed team since the lockout, since the salary cap era. That's been the best managed team.
Yeah, and they've just gotten bad luck, man. They've had Stamkos get hurt twice, big time, and that is game over. He's second best in the NHL right now in fantasy, so he's unreal this year.
At this point in time.
Say that again.
I think his line mate Kucherov is number one.
Is he really? I didn't even notice that.
You guys are number two in fantasy hockey right now. Fantasy rankings, I do believe right now.
It's just they're the epitome of they draft players in the proper spot, that in the position they need. They build them up the proper amount of time, and when they're about 20, they let them loose. Like Kucherov, they let him loose when he was 20. Stamkos was the number one pick, so of course he was going to get let loose. But Kucherov got dealt with the exact perfect way. And it seems obvious, but it's not obvious. There's lots of guys with talent level, not maybe as good as Kucherov, but very high talent level offensively, who'd get thrown in the fourth line or third line at the beginning of their 20-year-old career and just, oh, they're no good. No, you got to play Kucherov on the second or first line. Like, it's where he needs to be.
Yeah, I've noticed it too. They've got a few really nice, golden sort of guys coming in there. Braden Point's another one who's been amazingly good. Nemeshnikov's been really good. I actually just picked up Yanni Gordy off of waivers, sitting on that second line.
Yeah.
And, putting up some decent points there. Killorn's played really, really well. I mean, that whole lineup for Tampa Bay has just been unreal.
The way I look at my favorite teams, the teams that I really think are doing it the right way, it's always their system, their entire system. You go down to the minors. How do their minors teams do? How do their WHL players do? How are they building them up all the way from the bottom to the top? Like Detroit used to be the best for it. Detroit used to be the one that you'd look at and go, whoa, like their minors team always dominated people, and that's because they played them the right amount of time. But they've kind of fallen behind the trends, which is to get younger players up in the NHL quicker and get them producing quicker. And they hold back. They still hold back their prospects. But Tampa seems to have like an educational system that everybody knows what's expected of them when they come up. Like they know they've been taught the right way. The coaches all are on the same page, and then when they get up there, they know what their job is, and they can do their job right away. And they're given the chance to succeed. I think Yzerman's a genius. I think he's great. I think they had a bad couple of years. Like last year wasn't great for them, but I'm so glad they didn't blow it up because I'd love to see them win. I really cheer for Yzerman. I think when I watch the moves they make, I'm just like, that's a guy who knows what he's doing. And I hope he's the GM for Canada forever.
I agree. I think, like I said, I honestly think that they've been the best managed team since the salary cap's been put in. They've just made some really smart, good, solid moves all the way around. We'll jump from Tampa, who's been, obviously one of my bigger surprises of the year, but I want to go one that's sort of just kind of flown under the radar a little bit, and it's a team that, again, they've just had a similar to another team that we're going to touch on here in a little bit is the LA Kings.
Yeah,
the LA Kings lost Jeff Carter. He's going to be out for a little bit of a stretch here, but what's really impressive with the way LA has been playing is that they've just brought up these no-name guys that Kempe and Iafallo and all these type of guys like this, and they're playing extremely well. They're sitting at 9-1 right now, 9-1-1, which is out of the gates. That's for a team that last year a lot of people were saying might be the bottom of the barrel because they're just too old and slow. They haven't shown that at all. I mean, they've been a really good team this year.
And I am totally surprised because I saw like their defensive, like they have their third defensive pairing is Curtis McDermott and Oscar Fentenberg, two guys I had never even heard of before. So I saw that earlier on in the year, and I saw they didn't look deep at all to me. Like adding Camilleri in the offseason, I was like, that's a desperate move. I thought Camilleri was done, which he still might be. He's still playing like 12 minutes a game kind of thing, but they're getting use out of him. He is a player. If you haven't seen any highlights of him, go check out some of his highlights. He scored a deke that I saw the other day that was just nasty. Kempe is going to be a long-term good player. So, and he's in the same mold as like Kopitar was too. So, like kind of big guy, can skate well, has finesse. So his emergence is real. He's one of the guys I was going to mention in fantasy. If he's somehow available in your league, grab him because he is for real. He's got that role locked up, and he's going to do this all year pretty much. I think he's a breakout this year, big time.
Iafallo's actually on their first line.
He is, yeah.
He's been quite impressive as well. He's played extremely well as well. So that's surprising to me, just because they brought in a bunch of guys that are sort of nobodies that nobody ever heard of, and I think that the only team that's done that better is the next team that I'll bring up. That's been a huge surprise to me that I predicted to be the bottom of the entire NHL, and the New Jersey Devils.
Me too. You know, I hate them.
Yeah. You look at where they are right now. They're sitting, in first in the Metro, 8-2. They brought in guys like Bratt. They've brought in who's this other defenseman, the young defenseman guy, uh, Jesper Jesper Bratt, I think his name is.
He's a forward.
Is he forward?
Yeah, he's a right winger. You're thinking Butcher, Will Butcher,
Yeah, Will Butcher.
defense.
I thought
He's been good too. And Gibbons has been good. Their third liner, he's been like surprisingly good.
they've gotten contributions from a lot of guys that you just never expected it to come from in Jersey at this point in time. Like I said, there was um, just again a bunch of nobody guys that nobody really knew much about, and they're playing way above their head at this point in time. I never expected them to be anywhere near as good as what they're showing here now.
And they've even had injuries to Schneider.
Yep.
Schneider's been out for a bit, and they've had to play Kincaid, and they had to play their other guy, who I forget his name, who actually got Wedgwood,
Yep.
who now got picked up by Arizona when he tried to go through waivers, which you never know, he might be something in Arizona, but I don't think so. But I totally agree. Like, I don't see it, but they do have Hischier or whatever, their first round pick, who's a very good player. Now, so they've got stability up center. Like, they always had Henrique. Henrique is a good second line center. And this Hischier is a real player. Like, he's a really, really good player. So maybe that's all they needed was stability up at the top, and they didn't have it before. And Jesper Bratt looks pretty good too. Like, Jesper Bratt I thought he was a flash in the pan, but he's back on another streak right now, getting points again, and looks kind of like he's going to be streaky but good.
I think
So
he's taken a little bit of pressure off of Ishii or whatever his name, however you pronounce his name. But
yeah,
he's sort of been brought in as this like highly touted rookie, and I think the way Jesper's been playing, it's taken a lot of the spotlight sort of off of him, and he's able to kind of play his game a bit more. Which again is not
yeah,
an easy thing to do, right? I mean, you come in that highly touted, and someone's able to take a little bit of that shine off and let you sort of adjust a little bit easier. Ooh,
totally. And the news is more about Bratt right now than his share has been good though. His share's got, I forget, I don't know how many points. He's like 8 points or something like that, 9 games. He's doing really well.
Will Butcher back there on the point too has played really, really well. He's not a very big guy either, and he's done extremely well. And I'm not sure if New Jersey stays where they are going at this pace, but boy, oh boy, being this being where they are right now.
Well, you talk about a team that if they were to fall out of it and there would be a goalie available, Schneider would be readily available, I'm sure, at his age. But that team's so young, built around him, and he's 30 something, 33 maybe.
I'm not sure if they would be willing to do that, though. They know that he's one of the best goalies in the world. I don't think that he would. He's 30. He's only 31.
Oh, is he really? So they could still use him for a couple more years. I don't know though, but you get to around that 30, you get around 30, 31, and they become untradeable. Like, if you don't trade them when they're 30 or 31, you can't trade them.
I don't see Jersey getting rid of them. They'd have to have somebody sort of be coming up and in to kind of push him out, I think, at this point. And I don't think they have anything like that through their system at this point in time. And I still think we've mentioned this before, sort of back and forth. There's a couple of goalies in the NHL that you know that will.
Yeah, it's the NHL now is that there's depth at goalie. There really is depth at goalie.
Yeah, well, everyone's like.
I don't know. I think that
not very many teams that need.
you go ahead.
There are a few ones with some glaring sort of needs. That's for sure.
But the thing is, those teams, like Vancouver needs a goalie for sure. Like, Markkanen doesn't look like he's the long-term solution. Markstrom, I mean, sorry. But they shouldn't be going to get a goalie right now because losing is okay. It's no big deal to lose right now, although they're 6-3 and not losing. So
That stays to form either. Like I said, I think everything. I think there's some things are going to stay sort of as they are now. Like I think Tampa being there is going to be fairly similar. Another team that I've really enjoyed watching and have been really good is Columbus as well. And I think they'll stay at where their clip is right about now. But I'm not sure if teams like Jersey stay where they are or. Um,
how about Ottawa? What do you think about them? They're doing well. Do you think they're going to stay there?
This one's a little bit surprising to me for this. I mean, like, look at their record though. They've got 5 wins,
I know,
5 overtime.
5 times
Yeah. So I mean
losses.
that is scary to me. You know what I mean? I mean they've only had 1 loss in regulation, so that's a great thing. But boy, oh boy, those overtime wins or losses can go either way and start to really eat away at those extra points that you're leaving on the table. And that could be something that sort of hinders them. I'm not sure. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't watched too much Ottawa, but I don't know how Carlson's looked since coming back from the having his parts
Okay.
packed
I
off.
don't think he's himself.
What's that?
I don't think he's quite his regular self, but he's looked out. He's looked good. He had a 3-point game pretty quick after he came back.
One of the funniest clips that I seen was when LA was playing them in overtime, and it was Kopitar, Brown, and maybe Kempe were on the ice, or Doughty, Kopitar, and Brown were all on the ice, and they kind of had a little argument who's going to cover Carlson, and all three of them were like, nope, not a chance. I'm not covering Carlson 3-on-3. Forget it. It was quite. It was
he's in 3-on-3. He might be like #1 in the league. McDavid still probably, but he's right up there because he's just so impossible to wrangle. You can't wrangle him.
Yeah, he's pretty dynamic, that's for sure. Biggest surprise so far, and I'm pretty sure this is going to echo, this sentiment echoes all the way through the league, is got to be Vegas. I mean, look at the adversity that they've went through already. They've lost Fleury, they've lost Subban, and they're 8-1. 8-1.
Like Cody Eakin is like their first line center, I think. Cody Eakin.
He's been bad too. He's been horrible too. But
got no points.
They're winning. They're winning. James Neal has been
I'll get it.
Player. I'm
and even their
James Neal. I've always been a big fan of James Neal. Even when he was in Pittsburgh, I liked him there, and I was a little bit shocked that they left him. And I was again a bit more shocked too when Nashville did the same thing. To me, he's a really good, solid player, and I think put in the right situations, he can put up some serious numbers.
I think they're a good example, though, that if you play a system and you really commit to your system, you can't just rotate any players in, but you can put a lower class team on the ice, and they can absolutely win. And they're just going to grind you down, and their goalies are going to know where the shots are coming from because they're really focused on having that system in place. But like, if you look on paper, there's no way they should be where they are at all. They're not playing Shea Theodore.
I remember when we did the mock expansion draft, we did that little podcast based on that. And the teams that we actually chose and the team that they ended up with were completely different than what it was. I mean, yeah, there was a few players that we chose sprinkled in here and there, but on the whole, like we both thought that we had teams that were going to be able to compete. And the team that they chose, I remember after they chose the team, I thought, why did they let some of these teams off so easy? Like, I mean, they let Anaheim off really easy. They did a few different things for a couple of different teams and picked some guys that were sort of, odd to me. But then for them to come out 8-1, can't say anything. No, you can't go back and be disputing any of those picks.
Yeah, and they've still got Theodore in the minors. They're one of their big moves that they did was try to get Shipachyov too, and Shipachyov's that's a crazy decision.
Right?
He's suspended, and I think he's on the next boat to Russia. I guess nobody takes boats anymore. That's an old, but He's heading back to Russia, I think.
Is pretty big for a guy that hasn't proven anything in the NHL. He's at 4.5 and 5 million in the next two. So it's a real tough sort of a contract for anybody to sort of bring on a big question mark. So I'm not sure that he's going to be able to find a place in the NHL.
Nope, I kind of think so too. I don't know. There's not a lot of teams after guys like him. There's been too many examples of Russian players kind of similar to him who never acclimatize and never really fit in, and it just doesn't work. Radulov at the beginning was like that. Even though he played well, he was not good in the locker room. Nobody liked him. So he shipped off, and the team was not going to pay him because they knew that he wasn't well liked, and they just didn't want to pay him. So he went back to Russia for 3 years or 4 years.
Yeah, I remember that he looks like he's got a nice in Dallas, that's for sure. He's one of the more intense guys. I like watching him just to see how happy he gets whenever he scores. I really enjoy watching guys like that. I used to love it when Big George Laraque would score too, because it looked like he was the happiest kid in the world when he actually fought a goal. And Radulov's got that same sort of thing. He gets pretty intense when he puts the puck in the net.
Yeah, I think he's an intense dude. I think it didn't work for him when he was a young guy coming in, and he was the youngest in the dressing room, and then all the older guys were like, all right, man, chill out a bit. Like, chill out for a second. You're just a kid here. Yep. But now he's a veteran, so he can do that stuff. And he's doing all right in Dallas. He's doing worse than I expected. I thought he was going to be better than this, honestly. I thought he would go to Dallas and he would be lights out. Because I just thought he had that.
He's notorious for their slow starts. I think they're still coming around. I've been a little bit.
They are.
Ben Ensagan is.
They look good to me.
I think that they'll get it together. They're a pretty solid team there as well.
Yeah, I think that's a team that, like we predicted, we're going to do well. The teams that we thought would get better this year have definitely gotten better this year. I don't think we predicted too many wrong, except for we definitely didn't catch the Golden Knights, and we didn't catch Jersey being any good. But I think that if you're going to bet money, their record going forward, would you bet money that New Jersey has an over 500 record from today to the end of the year?
Yeah,
I wouldn't take that bet.
Yeah, I would. I expect them to fall down a little bit as well. I just don't think they're that good. If you kind of go through everything right now, the first 10 games aren't like usually they say the season kind of starts after game 15, right around there. So we're getting there. But
yeah,
the way that the standings are right now, nobody aside from Jersey at 8-2, Tampa at 9-2, and then you've got your St. Louis is at 9. Well, 9-2-1, and LA at 9.
And they kind of look. St. Louis, we didn't say much about them, but 9-2-1 is really good. But they kind of look like they deserve it. They look to me like a pretty well-built team.
Yeah, I'm not sure
that are just popping in stuff.
I really like St. Louis's defense. I think they've done that really, really well. I mean, every
me too.
They're really quite solid. Easter all the way through to Parayko
and they just keep rotating a new guy in every year. Like they had Parayko, I think last year was a rookie, maybe the year before. But he just comes out of nowhere and he's really good. And then now I think Edmundson. He's not flashy, but he's very solid, and he's been very solid now for 2 years. And he's a fantasy guy I would target right now, just as a safe. You just want a steady, going to get you good plus minus, going to get you a few points and. Hit lots and lots of blocks.
He gets you your pins too. He's a nasty guy to play against as well.
Yeah, and he gets minutes.
Who's surprised you thus far as players are concerned?
Well, I'm not surprised by Stamkos, but I am a little surprised he's doing as well as he is. He's like the old Stamkos and right back to what he used to be. I'm super happy about that. I drafted him in only one league but he was dropping late in fantasy leagues. Late first, top of second kind of pick. And he's looking like he's back to being almost a first or second round, like definitely top 5 for sure. And I'm happy to see that. I'm interested about some of the young guys that are doing well. Jesper Bratt is one of the ones I was looking at today where he's that New Jersey. It looks like that New Jersey team is definitely going to score more than I thought. So he's actually got some potential, I think. Kempe is one that I really like. I really like him. I think he's a solid player, and I think that LA has no reason not to just let him play and give him a lot of time, a lot of power play time. Um, I'm the big one of them is we've already talked about him, but Okposo is one of my like holy crap. That's a scary looking rest of his career if you have him in a dynasty or anywhere. I don't like the look of what's going on with him at all. Like he might be done.
Yeah, he's been extremely disappointing. I picked him up in almost all of my leagues, hoping that he would do something, and he was pretty fast drop for me. I mean, he's just like you said, he's just might very well be just done, and it's too bad. I mean, because he was looking like he could have been a pretty decent player, but yeah, he's just fallen sort of map there. Um,
As a Vancouver fan, I like Brock Boeser a lot. I think he's been really good looking. And we're not a team that really scores without him. And as soon as he's come in, he's like a point per game almost. Maybe not quite that good yet, but he's not too far off. He looks great on the ice, and it gives us something to root for in Vancouver because we haven't had too many players like him in the last while that we've drafted, had them through their youth, let them play, and they've become good.
I'm super surprised with Derek Dorsett, though, too. I would imagine.
God. I can't even think of the last guy that we drafted has gone through our whole set. Edler, I guess, is one.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of players that like come through our system and makes me crazy because as I've told you earlier, that's what I like in a GM. I like a guy like Yzerman who drafts a guy, keeps him his whole minors career, and then puts him in the NHL. Teaches them the right way. Vancouver doesn't do that. They're starting to do that, I think. I think they've realized 10 years too late.
Anybody else
How
surprised
about you? What's the
on the end of players wise?
Well, I'm disappointed with McDavid for sure. I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think if you ever could buy low on him, I don't think anybody would ever sell McDavid. Anybody who drafted him first overall doesn't want to trade him right now. But he's been disappointing me for sure. Murray in Pittsburgh, who I view as maybe the best goalie in the NHL, sometimes has been way too hit and miss this year. If you play in a categories league, he's not really helping you because he kills you one game and then he helps you the next game. And then he was the opposite for 2 years. He was just steady, awesome for 2 years straight. It's got me worried. I would say the young players I'm kind of impressed with so far. Like I'm impressed with this young group that's come in their first year and look good. Kyle Connor in Winnipeg, I think, has a chance to be a real good player.
Mm-hmm.
He's been almost a point per game so far. Matthew Perreault's hurt. Matthew Perreault's always hurt. And they've been winning since he's come in. And I kind of think that it would be hard for him to lose that job now. I think he's kind of got wrapped up that job. And their goalie, Connor Hellebuyck this year. If I can get him in a keeper or something at a low value, I think Mason's done. I don't think you're going to see Mason be consistent ever, ever, ever. And Hellebuyck has kind of been a post-type sleeper where everybody picked him last year thinking Winnipeg was better. He's young. A lot of scouts say he's really good. And he was good in the AHL. And then he choked last year. He like uber choked last year. Got 10 opportunities. Every time he got an opportunity, terrible game. But this year, he got his first opportunity and he ran with it. And he's been running with it, and Mason's been choking. So
I have to bring this up because I just noticed this. As you mentioned before we went live about possibly bringing Kyle on board. That sneaky little bugger. He was on the board with Shea Theodore, and he's been called up, and Kyle was snagged him in our pool there.
smart move. I had a feeling because he was at the top of the free agent waiver list of like guys that are being added with no news. There's no Yahoo News or anything about him. But I was like, that doesn't happen for nothing. There's poolies out there who are following what's going on in the minors, and they know there's probably some little story got out. I had a feeling. I had a total feeling about that
That was a
because
nice
there's no reason.
coy move by him there. I'm pretty impressed, to be honest.
I'm saying Kyle's on his game this year, man. Kyle's he's checking everything. I can tell he's checking everything. I don't know if he always did, but this year I can definitely tell he's looking everywhere he can look for information.
For guys too, just none of my guys have been panning out. Like I picked up Luke Kunin out of Minnesota, who's
Who say again? Who?
Luke Kunin.
Not even sure who that is.
Really good player. He came in, he played really, really well. He's an offensive sort of guy. Let me see what his numbers were, but um, he came in and he played quite well for Minnesota as well. But then he just got sent back really quick. I've had that sort of hit and miss sort of happen to me a few times so far with guys. There was another guy out of Chicago or Boston that came in, Heinen.
Yeah, Danton Heinen.
Yeah, who I was looking at as well, and then he just sort of was up and then he's back down really quick. Hosang's obviously I'm holding on to him just because I don't think it's a smart move to let him go this early.
No,
But he's just
something has to be there because he was fine when he played.
yeah, and that's the thing. He's
Um,
just handcuffing me a little bit there.
Voracek. I'm glad to see Voracek's kind of back. Voracek, I picked him I think the last 3 years I've had him in fantasy because I love the way he plays and I like Philly's offense. But he was disappointing the last couple of years for sure. He was not Voracek, the sniper I thought he was going to be. Or he's not really a sniper. He's more of a setup guy. But he looks pretty legit.
Yeah, he's looked really good.
Matt,
One thing I would like to touch on is how well I think Minnesota's handled their injury situations too, because they've had two big pieces of their lineup sort of sat out for the most part of this year in Niederreiter and Charlie Coyle. And they've
yeah.
actually done extremely well without those two guys in there as well.
And Parise is down too. And Granlund missed some time too. Granlund missed 5 games or so.
So it's pretty impressive to see how well they've played. I'm actually quite surprised and quite shocked by that. They're getting healthy here again because Niederreiter and Coyle are back again.
I definitely think Dubnik's a buy low too because he's not been great, but he's been okay, and he's still going to get the starts, and that team's going to get better for sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I didn't even notice Braden Point. You're right; he's been really good. Sean Couturier has been really good. There's some guys there that are surprises for sure. Clayton Keller, really good. Was supposed to be this good, but
Clayton's been really, really good. He's been really impressive. But the problem with him is his team is just so bad.
So bad, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to take any guys in Arizona now if you have plus minus in your leagues, if you have anything like that. You're just accepting.
I ended up taking Ekman Larson because he came to me in, I think it was 6th or 7th round or something along those lines. And I took him because he's usually a hit and block kind of guy who puts up points as well. And I kind of just thought, well, he'll solidify the D. I'm not a big fan of taking guys that sort of late, you know what I mean? Or that
Yeah.
But I was just sort of like, well, he's just there. I might as well just take him at this point in time. But man, he's been brutal. And I would like to deal him essentially because most of the guys that I had that for my defense were all injured guys, right? So it was guys like I got Ekman Larson in the 5th round. Another guy that's been killing me too is Brian Little. He's been extremely disappointing as well.
Don't give up on him yet, though. I'm telling you that he'll be fine in the flow of it. He missed a lot of time last year. He's probably just, he's a good player. I think he's a good player. I really like Winnipeg this year as well. That's a team that I'm kind of all in on this year to make a good improvement.
Okay.
I think they're playoffs this year.
Yeah, I was in a bit of.
I think Hellebuyck.
I took Larson because I ended up taking Vatanen in the 12th.
Okay.
Lindholm in the 15th because they were on the IR, and then of course I had Sekera in the 24th round, and all those guys are on IR and they're coming off now. So I was hoping that Ekman Larson would come out and have a strong start to the year, so I could flip him for something, on the offensive end. And boy, it's just been the complete opposite. having those guys go down has really sort of hurt me. So
You know who's really surprised me, and in fantasy he's been extremely valuable? Dustin Brown in LA this year so far.
he's pleased because he was brutal last year and the year before.
Brutal. 3 years in a row, I would say. He was awful for 3 years.
Another guy that's sort of been a little bit under the radar is Chris Stewart in Minnesota as well.
Yeah, they brought him out of the dead because he was nowhere. He was in nowhere land for a couple years.
He's played quite well.
And that seems like a team that they just very smart organization. Like they draft players, they bring them up the whole way through. They're another team that, and the guys they do bring in, like a Chris Stewart, they make them into better players. Like they become better while they're there. They never become worse.
Again, it's the same thing. Echo to that same sort of sentiment. They play them in the right situations, right?
Yeah.
They never put Chris Stewart on the top two lines. He's a third line guy, and then he sort of comes into his own and he starts to, know what he's playing, and he plays that part really, really well. I mean, he's given a bit more freedom and things like that to kind of take off and go with it. So definitely not a bad thing. That is for sure.
They kill you with their four lines too. Like nobody at the end of the year is going to be at the top of the scoring lead in the NHL. None of them.
Yep.
But their third line guys still getting 50 points, and their fourth line guys are still getting 35 to 40 points, and you're just like, oh, so they just keep at you. They grind you down, and their defense is super solid. Like they have always had, even guys like a guy like Jonas Brodin, way underrated in the NHL. They never trade him. They know how good he is. He never gets points, but he's super solid, like really solid hockey player.
Minnesota's got a nice, deep defense there as well. Dumba and Brodin and Suter and all those guys. Their defense is pretty solid.
Sure, yeah.
Who's been your big?
Do you think? I was going to say to you, we haven't really talked about Toronto. We brought them up. You mentioned that you thought this could be the year they should go for it. Do you think that's what they should do?
Yeah, because there's already talk. Like I said, Edmonton went through the same thing, right? When you've got those guys and they start to really, it's not very often you have guys like McDavid and Matthews sort of come in and be as good as they are right off the get like that. I mean, it's pretty rare. And the fact that they've had Marner and Nylander and Matthews and Connor Brown and all of these guys sort of come in and gel really fast, you sort of limited. You have a limited space of time to be able to capitalize on all that depth that you have. And I think that you're going to see this is going to be a thing with these rebuilding sort of teams, is that when they have those two or three guys that come in and are able to do that, they're going to be making more moves to kind of go for it within those first couple of years. Because I think, and I said the same thing at the beginning, I think Edmonton sort of went through that thing as well, because they were able to afford guys like, I mean, if they didn't deal away Hall for Larson, they would have had one of the most stacked forward setups in the entire league. And they could have afforded it because they were still okay with the cap stuff, right? But I mean, and once you kind of get past that stage, it's not even the Taylor Hall trade is not what triggered it. I'm just using it as an example, right? But you kind of go through and you deal away Hall, but then a couple of years later, you've got McDavid who comes up and Draisaitl comes in and has done amazing things as well. You then now have 2 years of those guys at best on their ELCs before you have to start dumping guys away and losing depth, right? So we've seen it in Edmonton with them getting rid of Eberle, and they're going to have to sacrifice.
Look at Walk.
It's going to be the same thing every single year, because it's going to get harder and harder and harder for them to bring in those really good quality players, because there's so much money eaten up in the new wave of guys. And Toronto's going to feel that exact same thing. So as early as next year, you're going to already see them starting to think about dealing away guys like Kadri and Van Riemsdyk and those kind of guys, because they won't be able to afford to keep them long term. So I mentioned it before that I think Toronto's best chances to win are probably within the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I got to agree. Probably next year is still fine, but that's about it. but they're going to get to the point of being in Washington's situation where their players are just getting too many points, where they can't afford them. Like if they want their maximum amount of money, like Edmonton, we've talked about this a long time. Actually, took a discount. Maybe we also think that Draisaitl maybe could have gotten more in the open market, but they didn't take the max, but it's still a lot of money. A lot. And they're not going to take way under what they're worth.
Well, they're
So
taking
that just
Patrick Maroon, and again, this could be something that really hinders them as well. I mean, I think Maroon knows exactly what his place is, and he's happy to be in Edmonton. I don't think that he, demands or asks for an exorbitant amount. But again, you kind of look at the way that it sits out here right now, and we've got $8 million in cap space as of now. How what can you really do with that for any sort of period of time aside from a year?
yeah.
The year, right?
Well, so the thing with Toronto is that like they're in order to get like Kapanen is a guy who just got called up, but they're not going to be able to keep all the Kapanens in the world if they really want to go for it. So he's a valuable trade chip. They have valuable trade chips. If you look in their minors, they've got a few other guys like that on the roster that could be moved maybe. I'd like to see them go for it. They're pretty good, man. Matthews is crazy. So he's not quite McDavid. He's not quite to that level, but he's pretty close, and he's going to be like right in there with him for 10 years here. They're going to be scores in the NHL, I'd say, for the next probably 10 years. So, while you're paying McMatthews nothing, it might be the time to go for it. I'm not sure Frederik Andersen is the answer.
I don't.
He makes me nervous.
Anderson's going to hinder you any. I don't think he's a bad goaltender. I mean, he played very well in Anaheim as well when he was there. He was one of the. I was a bit sort of miffed, and I couldn't understand why Anaheim even dealt him away because he was on such a good contract there anyway. And I thought he was the more solid goaltender of the two, him and Gibson. And I would still probably even give him an edge if they were both on the same team as of now. And I've said this to you before. I think that Ryan Miller ends up sort of playing a lot more games than he should be this year because of Gibson's instability.
But Gibson's been good this year. I hear what you're saying, and he's a top waiver wire guy is Miller because he's just become healthy,
yeah.
And if you don't have a goalie, he's a guy to add for sure. But I just don't see why. You're right, and Miller was good his last year with the Canucks. He actually was. Like, you just look at his stats.
I think Miller's still got at least 2 years of being a very, very good goalie.
Yeah. He's not their future, though. But the other thing that is smart to do with any goalie tandem or any goalie situation is to make it a tandem as long as you can make it a tandem, because the more you're sharing stats between two goalies, the less you have to pay the goalies in the end. Or you can trade one and get value for the one that you trade as well. Like, you might be able to get something. If you're just playing one guy like Edmonton, where they're just playing Talbot day after day, they might be better off playing one of their young guys a little bit more. And you never know. You could trade them for something, possibly, or not. Then you pay less to Talbot.
I do still think that Edmonton made a bit of a mistake not getting a guy like Calvin Pickard for the amount of draft picks that he went for. I think that he would have been a nice fit as a backup goaltender there. I'm not a big fan of Brossoit. It's not that I'm not a big fan. I'm not really confident that he's ready to be there yet. And I think that if they're going to make a serious run, whether that's this year or next, they're going to have to solidify that backup goaltending issue, because I think putting Talbot in there for 65, 70 games is not smart.
No, I agree. And he didn't seem to gas out too much in the playoffs, but he kind of did it as well. Like, he was very hit and miss in the playoffs. So I don't know. Like, I worry that any goalie playing that much doesn't make much sense.
The Oilers were 18 seconds away and an extremely bad missed call on a goaltender interference away from being in the
yeah, they were right there last year.
So,
they were my pick, man. Once that playoffs got rolling, I was rooting for them.
It was a
it,
a sweet one. I don't know. I can't believe how the NHL got that wrong, to be very honest.
there's still too much. That's one of the biggest negatives with the NHL is that there's. I mean, it's a big problem in the NFL too, and a lot of sports. But even in baseball this year, there's too much up for chance with these refs and stuff that you just can't. There's human error. There's absolutely human error, and that's part of the game.
I don't mind having a human error aspect in the game, but I also say that I think that the NHL needs to sort of nip a few things in the bud here. As far as like the offside rule goes, it should be the skate on the plane. It shouldn't be if it's touching us on the other side. It should be if it's over the plane, it's good. Because again, you guys are moving so fast, and it's really hard to see that as a referee. And if you start taking that sort of human error out of it, I think it just makes the game a little bit worse. So I think you have to let that kind of stuff go. But what bothers me the most about when you look back on the situation that happened with Edmonton, that is 100% unacceptable. Because you can clearly see that, and they reviewed it, that Kessler was all over his leg pad, and that there's no excuse for that. You understand what I mean? Like if a ref misses it because his skate blade gets off the ice before crossing the plane of the blue line, that's a very much forgivable offense to me. Missing something like that, even when you have the advantage of replay, is more devastating to the game to me.
Yeah, we're not too far away. I think we're 15 years away from there just not being referees on the ice anymore. And there's maybe one or two, but it's computerized. Like you almost have to get it right. There's no reason to be getting anything wrong anymore. Baseball has huge problems with it in the playoffs this year. The umps are just getting thrown under the bus left and right. Baseball, there should be nothing up for chance. It should be like you step on the base, a trigger goes off that times exactly that. Like there's everything's automated. It could be so easily done with the technology we have. Football, you can slow replays down to nothing and see every little detail. It should just be you get every call right almost, and you should kind of take it out of the referee's hands and just say, okay, we're going to replay. We'll stop until we get the exact right call. This is the playoffs. This is the most important thing. We have to get the right call. It'd be so frustrating as a player because I play pickup basketball, and when I'm feeling like the guys playing against it, there's no refs in the games I play. Sometimes there are, but the games that I play generally is just us officiating each other. And when you have a guy on the other team making bad calls, frustrating. And to have somebody who's not even playing making those bad calls, it would be so infuriating.
Yep. Well, trust me, I play hockey here in Taipei, and it gets pretty intense here with the referees sometimes as well.
In this situation, they're guys that are your age a lot of the time. These are not like elders anymore. We're like when we're kids. When you're a kid and a ref tells you to sit down, you go, all right, you're older than me.
Yep.
These are your peers that you're like, all right, shut up. Like, no, shut your mouth. I got to go to work tomorrow just like you, buddy.
Yep, exactly. So anything else you want to touch?
Just quickly, I'm just going to go over some of the guys I think on waivers to be looking at because it is Monday. I just printed out a list. So Miller was one of the guys. I think if you're looking at goalies, like a lot of leagues, it's hard to get anything in net, absolutely anything off waivers because most guys are locked up. Most leagues do 2 goalies, I think, at this point. Miller is an interesting one because when he plays, he should be good. So if you can just time it for his starts, and he should play more than an average backup for sure. He should get probably 2 starts a week or close to that. I really like, I've mentioned him before, but I really like Kempe in LA. If he's somehow still available in a league, I think he's absolutely a guy to get.
You talk about just goaltenders that are available in most leagues. Like, let's say you're in a 10 to 12 league team when you've got guys. I think another guy that's really interesting as far as a goaltender wise is Luongo as well. I still think he's, especially if it's not like, especially if you're just looking at a 1 or a 2 year sort of a goalie that you can just bring in. I think he's going to still be. I think Florida's a good team. And I think that they're going to be a really good team for the remainder of this year. And I think Luongo will put up some decent numbers for you as well. And again, he's sitting right now at 41% owned.
Yeah, that's crazy. We're not too many years away from him being like the number one goalie in fantasy. So he's not the same as he used to be. I'm not sure what I think about Florida. I kind of think they lost a lot when they lost Smith and they lost Marchessault. Like that's not, and they didn't replace it really. I'm not sure what I think about them because they do have a really good core as well with Barkov and guys like that. And Ekblad should be good, right? Like what happened last year? I don't know what happened last year.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine. One of the middle of the pack teams, and I think you'll get more wins than you will losses out of a guy like Luongo, and he's going to be, over 900 for save percentage, and he'll get a few shutouts in there as well. He's not a bad option indeed.
That's it on goalies. Like, there's no goalies. Like, goalies are not available. Wedgwood is being picked up by people. I don't think Wedgwood's worth grabbing because until Arizona shows they can win some games, Wedgwood's not going to fix them. A lot of people are looking at Oscar Dansk in Vegas because he's getting the starts now.
Cam Ward's sitting at a 6%.
Yeah, I was thinking that today that I might even drop Darling to get Ward because I think there's definitely going to be more starts going Ward's way in the next little bit.
I think that could be a pretty nice little pickup too, because I think Ward, like I said, I said the same thing with Luongo, and I said the same thing with who was the other goalie, Ryan Miller. I still think Ward's got a year or two left in him as well. So,
I agree, and Darling has been underwhelming, and they've been sticking with Darling. Like Ward's only had 2 starts, I think, this whole year. Even with Darling not being great. So they're definitely trying to let Darling come out of the funk, but he's not coming out of the funk. He's been very average. And if you look back in his journeyman career, he was average until he got to Chicago. And then he got a call up, kind of surprise, and then did really well once he got to Chicago.
Do you think
so? I'm not sold on him anymore, and I was kind of sold on him at the beginning of the year.
Do you think in deeper leagues do you think a guy like Malcolm Subban is worth holding on to, or do you just cut it out at this point right now? His junior numbers are pretty,
I think he's the goalie of the future, not Oscar Dansk. Oscar Dansk is not great. Like, he hasn't been great ever since he's come over to North America. So unless every other year has been an aberration, or this 2-game span that he's had where he's been good might be an aberration, and he's just playing out of his mind. It's like that team is playing out of their mind. So I do think he is their long-term hope, Subban, the guy that they're hoping. And it might be good if he hadn't gotten hurt. It might have been great because he might have gotten a bunch of starts and they could really see what they had in him. I'm not sure he's quite ready yet, but he's not too far off either. I don't think he's an elite, has that in him. I think he'll be very serviceable. Like, he'll be a mid to probably just a mid grouping of goalies, right in that category with like I don't know who. Hellebuck is another guy that, like, they're kind of not in the top group at all. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar for sure. And I kind of did way back. The name gets me, Subban, like his brother being so good that you just think the bloodlines. I like bloodlines in NHL.
Yeah, big fan of that.
I don't know if I would hold him. I think I doubt anybody else would grab him unless they just want to drop him on their IR and sit and wait. But some leagues I've had no trouble with IR, and other leagues I'm like constantly having to rotate people in and out of the IR. So hockey's not an easy league to have just a filled IR spot, especially if you only got one. But like my leagues mostly have like 3 IR spots. So I don't know. I think I would probably just ditch him.
Have 2 IR and maybe 1 IR plus is how it usually breaks down. But UCNR is like, I've got 4 or 5 guys on my IR at this point in time, and
I've got one league that I've got 3, and the other league I've got a league that I'm clean. I've got nothing. So it's really it could be anything, but 1 week, 2 days, every 2 days, it totally changes. Like I have to, it's NHL actually more than anything is I'm good at drafting, I think, and I'm pretty good at roster management, but I'm not good at monitoring IR in hockey because it is so quick to change. Like most sports, you kind of know, and you can just sit guys and replace them. Hockey, like I missed two Bergeron, Patrice Bergeron games when he came back from his injury because I just didn't look the day that he came back, and he
actually sits some of the players, like even the other day when Getzlaff came off, he was still listed as IR or day to day.
Yeah.
And he's back on day to day now for some odd reason. I'm not sure what's happened there either, but
I kind of feel like it's the news that happens in the NHL that's the issue. Like it's the reporting of the injuries and stuff. Like NFL, if you ever do fantasy football is like all the fantasy podcasts and stuff have doctors that work for them.
Yeah.
Because the guy gets a strained quad and they're like, oh, we need to talk to a medical how long that'll keep him out so that our fantasy people can know. Hockey's not really like that. Hockey is upper body injury, maybe day to day. Like,
so
you never know.
If you're in some leagues and this guy's still available, I think he's going to start to really turn it on here in the next little while. Is Jacob Silfverberg as well, and healthy, and that helps him out a lot. I mean, he was really good last year as well, and having Getzlaff come back and then getting all their guys back, he's going to have a nice bump too. He's only 41% owned in most Yahoo leagues right now.
I also noticed, who was I just thinking of here? Kyle Connor, I already mentioned earlier, but this is a guy that I'm seeing he's actually more dropped than added. Is Michael Del Zotto. In Vancouver, check out his numbers and his minutes. He's been playing 25 minutes a game. He's been getting power play time, penalty kill time. He's killing it in hits. He's killing it in blocks. And Vancouver have no reason not to keep doing it because they just don't have anybody else. They have nobody else. And he's doing reasonably well. He's not getting a lot of points. He had a good little burst early in the year. I think he's got 5 points this year. But his hits and his blocks, if you have a league that counts those, he's killing it. Absolutely killing it. And he's getting a lot of shots and a huge amount of minutes. And he's getting the usage.
There is that he's not picking up.
Well, the reason he's being dropped is because they have 2 games this week. So that's the reason people are getting rid of Vancouver players. But at the end of the week, if he's still sitting there on your waiver going into next week, I wouldn't get him this week. Kind of a waste. But if you can grab him coming into next week, I think he's always been a hits and blocks guy, and he's never gotten 26 minutes a game.
Yeah.
So he's going to have crazy hits and blocks. He's going to be like, what's his name that we talked about earlier? Philly, Radko Gudas. He's going to be like a Radko Gudas for a little bit.
All right, a couple of guys as well. Again, I'm sort of on a duck theme here, but Hampus Lindholm, he's currently sitting at 23% owned. And Sami Vatanen, who's even lower than that. I'm not sure exactly what his percentage are for owned, but he's again another guy that's going to be back, and he'll be a lot of points in Anaheim. Vatanen.
Yeah, I like that.
So those are a couple of guys.
I think Anaheim's going to get it rolling too.
What's that?
I think Anaheim is a team that's going to get it rolling as well because they've in these great defensemen. So
yeah, I think they're a really solid team to be looking at here in the near future.
Shea Theodore.
Vatanen's at 18% owned, so he's a nice one to have there as well.
Yeah, that's really.
What else you got on your list?
Shea Theodore. Theodore, if you have a keeper, I wouldn't expect great numbers from Theodore this year. There's a reason they're holding him down. They would have already had him up if they thought he was really ready. So he's probably defensively weak. So that's probably why they're holding him down, plus minus. But he's gonna. If you have a power play point league, a league that counts power play points as a separate stat, he's gonna get some power play points for sure. And if it's a keeper, like Kyle added him in our league, he's very valuable because next year will be his real breakout year, I think.
Another guy that this is for the big the goons. If you've got penalty minutes in your hockey pools and you've got hits, Bryant Reeves has been a beauty in Pittsburgh. He will win you those two categories almost every week. I think I've picked him up and dropped him about 4 times already.
Yeah, I always do that.
Almost. I've picked him up at the last game. Like I was down by, I didn't win this category last week, but I was down by 20 some penalty minutes, and yeah, sure enough, played Winnipeg, got 10 minutes in Pims. So he's been a real bright spot there as well.
And he's also, that's a team, when you're getting a goon, if you're going to have a goon, you want to have a guy like Sidney Crosby on the same team, because Crosby's actually the instigator. It's not Reeves who's the instigator. So Crosby instigates, he's a guy that needs to be protected, and Reeves will come out there and protect him every day, So that's what Reeves is there for. So I agree. The hits that he gets as well makes him just valuable straight up. So
another guy that I'm going to mention here is owned. He's going to be a keeper in your deeper leagues. Anders Bjork out of Boston on the left wing.
Yep.
He's a really nice look. He looks like a really nice little player in Boston as well.
I drafted him in our league. I told you. We debated whether, I think, Yamamoto or it was somebody like that who would be the better scorer this year.
That's interesting.
I'm like, I think Bjork might be one of the top rookie scorers at the end of the year.
I was high on Dubois. I thought Dubois would come in and win this.
Yeah, it was Dubois. It was Dubois in New York. That's who it was.
Yeah, Dubois has not done it. He's only got 1 goal, so he's playing on a pretty deep team there. And
I don't understand Dubois, because he was like supposed to be real good, and he's just not really panning out. The other guy I don't really get is Puljujarvi in Edmonton. Like, you could explain him to me, because I had a buddy asking me about him in Dynasty, and I said to him, I don't know.
He's a very similar type of player to Draisaitl and McDavid. He circles back, and he wants that puck at the his own blue line to be able to skate it up and in. And we've already got too many of those guys.
Yeah,
and I think that's the thing. We've got those type of players. So eventually, he may very well become expendable at some point. But again, I think that it'll be for something like a viable number 1 defenseman.
Yeah. I mean, that's about it. Like, I saw some other guys that our leagues are pretty deep, so I don't even mention the guys that we're heading in our leagues a lot of the time.
I've got a lot of guys on ours, but ours, most of the guys that I'm looking at are 0% owned, 1% owned, because they're just guys that just aren't available there anymore.
One thing I noticed, Vrana is on one of my teams, or maybe a couple, and he's in Washington, and he's being dropped by everybody right now because he's been on a bad run. He's been on about 7 games and no points. Yeah. I wouldn't sell him yet. If you're in a deep league and you've got him, don't give up on him yet, because they're putting in Devontae Smith-Pelly, I think, right now on that first line. But that's not a long-term solution. And Vrana is the right age to be on that line. He's probably not quite ready, but I think they want Vrana on that line. And I don't think I would just give up on him like that.
Another guy that's been probably the biggest and best surprise in New York is Pavel Buchnevich, or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
6% owned in most fantasy leagues here right now, and he's been a beauty. He's got 8 points already, 4 goals, 4 assists. He's been really, really good as well. Probably the only bright spot in New York Rangers season thus far.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he was good last year too. He came out of kind of nowhere last year and was pretty usable until he got hurt. Mikko Rantanen in Colorado, the guy that I was really interested in this year, and I wanted him last year. I had him last year as well. I drafted him in our keeper. He didn't do anything last year. He was very disappointing last year, but he looks like what I thought he would be last year now. And he's a big reason that Colorado team's gotten better. Like, he's gotten better, and they've now got a bit of scoring punch. They've got a bit of like, okay, these guys can actually play now.
Can I ask you, let me ask your opinion on this. Everyone was so hyped up about Nathan McKinnon, and they thought he was going to be the next biggest thing. They had him in commercials with Sidney Crosby as being sort of the guy that was supposed to be the next guy that's coming up and through the system. He's, to me, has been an extremely disappointing, extremely hyped player in the NHL. Do you kind of feel that same way about him, or is your sentiment a little bit different than mine?
Oh no, I feel the same way. I also he came out at a weird time. I think he got drafted. I don't know what year he got drafted,
I'm not sure
but he
about.
was drafted pretty close to Crosby, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It was like a year later or something like that. And that can be the worst thing that can happen to a guy. Like being the first pick overall the year after McDavid
Well, I
is
remember his biggest thing was he came out and he was so lights out in the playoffs. It was the biggest thing, was just on fire in that one year in the playoffs, and he played so well. And the next year, everyone from that point, everyone was just sky high on him. And it's one of those situations where you kind of go, ooh, he hasn't really lived up to that hype at all since.
and you don't hear much about him either. Like it's kind of like it's just a non-story.
He's
But
put on they won't trade him in Colorado list, but I'm not sure why they would, entertain trading Duchesne, who's actually, I think, a better player than.
it's all because he's a center.
Center as well, right? Duchesne's a center left, is what he's rated, right?
Yeah.
And I do believe that McKinnon is center right. But I mean, it's a really weird situation there. I mean,
I think
pretty iffy.
Colorado is very, very interesting for the next 2 months. That might be the team to watch if you're trying to buy, because they have a lot of actually valuable players that if you just take them out of that team and put them on a good team, could actually be awesome. Like McKinnon might be one of those guys, but definitely Duchesne, Tyson Barrie. They've got some other players that are, and even Varlamov's been better this year. It's a little bit sneaky. He's been somewhat valuable this year. He's kind of looked like his old self. And they could lose their next 5 games and just be, oh, yeah, we suck. And be ready to sell things off. Or they could win. They could win a few more games in a row here, and they're not selling at all. They're very interesting to watch because they had the most rumors about possible trades in the offseason by far. Always the bottom dweller team will have that. They clearly have to sell off. But I don't know if I think they're better than they were last year. And I think they're going to be about 500 this year and not sell off. I don't think you're going to get all these guys off of them.
I think they deal Duchesne. I think they have to deal Duchesne at some point.
Yeah, I don't know though. I wouldn't.
They kind of have to. I think it's been drawn out too long, and I think that there is, a little bit of resentment in kind of the way it's been handled. I'm quite certain that things were said that probably weren't very,
can't be taken back kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that those bridges have sort of been burnt. So I wonder if I see Duchesne going, and like I mentioned before, I think that he goes to Montreal. I think Montreal ponies up Galchenyuk and some other, maybe a pick, and that's the deal that sort of happens. And it makes sense from both teams, actually, because again, you got Galchenyuk and Yakupov who have a history together. You've got Duchesne. Duchesne's French, isn't he from?
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
I'm not sure his name would say yes, but I mean, I'm not sure if he is or not. But it just makes sense from both sides.
Well, Galchenyuk is flaming out, absolutely, in Montreal. Like, I never thought his career would be where it is right now at all.
He looked pretty promising, right? I mean, he looked like a
really promising. And he was kind of promising at the beginning of his career. They were kind of playing him right at the beginning. He definitely looked like, wow, this kid has talent, like serious talent. And he's just never turned it into anything at all. And this year he's worse than ever. So I don't know. You're right. He needs a new location. Maybe Duchesne does too. If I'm Montreal, I would take that because it looks like Galchenyuk's not turning into anything, which is, I'm surprised as well. But I would definitely take Duchesne. Duchesne's a good player, for sure, a good player.
He's a great player, and I think if he's put in the right situation, he could flourish. And I think him playing, with Drouin would be a nice pickup for Montreal as well. I think that would help them out a lot.
I also worry about Drouin, though. Like, I think he's a good player, but Tampa Bay did what they did with him for a reason. We talked earlier about how much we believe in Yzerman's view of things and that whole coaching staff and organization's view of things. So when they sit a guy down and they say, sorry, dude, we just don't think you're good enough to be playing with us right now. Not because we don't think you can score. Like, I think they were kind of missing the point. Drouin was missing the point that they weren't saying, we don't think you can get 50 points. They were saying, we don't think you can play our system and do what we need you to do. And you'd be really good at it. We could win a cup if you come up and you play exactly the way we say. You can tell that you're just going to go up there and you're going to try and snipe everything and shoot, or whatever you want to do. So he wasn't mature enough. He either wasn't his maturity wasn't there, his defensive play wasn't there, or whatever. But they definitely viewed him as not ready. And there's no reason they would have held him back unless they really viewed him as not ready.
Yeah,
so,
like I said to you, like I mentioned before, I just think Steve Yzerman's, he's a smart man, and he's done the best job there for sure. It's interesting to see Montreal. I think they've got to do something. They've got to do something really quick, because if they don't, that fan base can turn real fast,
big time. And the target might be Price. Your one guy who could be the savior might get driven right out of town. So those are the two teams, actually. I think the Colorado, just to see if they can maintain. I'd love to see Colorado have a comeback year and get better. But Montreal, if they stay like this, oh my God. I have half my friends are Montreal fans, and all I see on Facebook every day is, oh my God, fire Bergevin. Oh my God, get Price out of net. Oh my God.
It's been one of we had one of the guys that was on our podcast before, Mark Cheknita, is a big Montreal fan as well, if you remember rightly, and he started to really consider looking for a new team to cheer for after they traded Subban for Shea Weber.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense if you wanted to win today. If you wanted to win that 1 year, it was like, okay, we need toughness for the playoffs. We're going to win this year. But that's not a team that's going to win this year. It's just not.
They needed more pieces than just a Weber.
It almost seemed like it might have been to appease Price. Maybe Price and Subban didn't have a great relationship, or like Weber's a guy to have. If you're a goalie, having Weber standing in front of you is a nice thing for sure.
I thought that Subban and Weber had a really good friendship.
Price. I can't imagine Subban not getting along with everybody. Like, he seems to me, like all the interviews I've ever seen of him and stuff I've seen him do, he seems like a young guy. Like, he's a different generation of hockey player for sure. And he's definitely more like social media kind of guy and stuff. Yep. But he seems likable and like a nice guy. He definitely does good stuff for the community. So I was very surprised they'd move him too, because he's cornerstone kind of defenseman, and he's young. So, yeah, I think Montreal's the one to watch. I think over the next little while we'll see where Montreal's going to go. You're right. Some kind of change has got to come, or else, if I'm Price, get me the hell out.
With no wins in their first 10 and expect to be making the playoffs, so they're going to have to do something real quick. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
And on a side note, if you could acquire Price for a reasonable price, get him. I still think he's good, and he's definitely not this bad. So if you can buy low on him, get him low, and he's gonna improve for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've been sort of waiting for. I have him in my one, and I thought my goaltending was going to be the strongest. I had Price, Talbot, and Rinne. The only one that's actually done anything is Rinne, who you told me to deal, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, and I was all sure that Rinne was done, and I had Saros in this league. I'm about to drop Saros. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would too.
Horrible. So it turns out, can't predict goalies. That's the lesson. Cannot predict goalies.
The lesson of the day. Let's end right there. How do we call that a night? Right.
Yeah.
Stop it right. A lot, Shane. I really appreciate it. Stick around. We'll chat for a little bit longer if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Thanks everybody for watching. We're gonna do some. We're gonna try and do some giveaway stuff here in the near future. So if you guys are watching us on these channels, we'll be doing a little bit of giveaways to try and get ourselves out there a little bit more. I haven't talked to you about that yet, Shane, but I'll let you know about that situation as well.
We're not getting my Vancouver Canucks jersey, just so everybody's aware. This is mine. It's not being given away. Not yet.
Want it anyway.
I know everybody's clamoring.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks again. We'll be back in hopefully in a few days. All right.
Cool. Peace out.